right. Well, I'm Swami Chidbrahmananda. For those of you who don't know me or don't remember, I have some history with this place, have always loved it. Spent a number of my first years in the monastery trying to get a posting here, and then realized that's not how it works. So it's wonderful to be back. I'm posted up in Santa Barbara now. If anybody ever wants to come up for a visit, you're always welcome to a cup of tea or a coffee or a chat on our patio overlooking the ocean. So please come on by anytime. I've been inspired to talk about freedom because it's become a big component of my last few years. Uh, Actually, it's been a fantastic last, I guess, 3 or 4 years now, where so much of the effort of my last 27 years in the monastery have finally come forward and produced what I was hoping would happen at some point in my life, and something that I never thought would really come of my life with the way that it was before. And so I'm excited to share some of these things with you today, and hopefully they'll be helpful. Hopefully they'll be as cool to you as they are to me. To start, as some of you may know, I'd like to continue with my old habit of reading a Hafiz poem to ease us into this space and to remind us that we are navigating love right now, surrounded by it and filled with it everywhere around us, that nothing is what it seems to be, right? This room is not material. You are not physical. We are not people, right? We are the manifestation of one enormous, endless, infinite, conditionless love. And to be aware of that, right? If I don't start the poem, I'm going to get wandering off here, so let me start. Hafiz says, "Leave the familiar for a while. Let your senses and your bodies stretch out like a welcomed season onto the meadows and the shores and the hills. Open up to the roof. Make a new watermark on your excitement and love. Like a blooming night flower, bestow your vital fragrance of happiness and giving upon our intimate assembly. Change rooms in your mind for a day. All the hemispheres in existence lie beside the equator in your heart. Greet yourself in your 1,000 other forms as you mount the hidden tide and travel back home. Yes, all the hemispheres in heaven are sitting around a fire, chatting, while stitching themselves together into a great circle of love inside of you." This is a marvelous power, actually, a marvelous privilege that we've been given, and I'm actually going to take a chance here and just kind of separate from my notes, since a lot of stuff's coming forward, and who knows what will happen now. But this changing room in your mind for a while is a great way to learn about grace. It's a great way to touch the divine, because this moment is an intersection of many realities formed into a singularity, right? This moment is itself a singularity, right? Our mind interprets it as many moments, right? And puts some of those moments in the past and puts some of those moments in the future, and then puts a singular moment in the now. But that's an impossible arrangement. It's an arrangement that can't be true and can't work. Because if you have a past and a future, you can't have a present, right? Because that moment where the future becomes the present before it becomes the past does not exist. If you look for the moment, you're going to slice it smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until you're like, this is an exercise for mathematicians. There's nothing here, right? And so the sages tell us that there is nothing but the moment, that the past is your imagination. Really, the past is your attachments, right? The things that you didn't allow just to flow through you in time, but the things that you stopped, you reached out and grabbed them, wanting to share your immortality with them. So you take them and you put them in your memory to hold on to them. You didn't want them to be finite, to be temporal. And so they slip away. And we're taught to use that for our discernment, right? We're taught to use that to kind of break our addictions to all of our pleasures, to all of our desires, to all of these things in life that get us trapped and turn the moment into something less than perfect, right? Because this moment is God, right? It is the I am. In the Old Testament, we have that name of God when Moses asks God, he's talking to the pharaohs, right? God is telling him, all right, I want you to go to the Pharaoh, and I want you to ask him just to free the 3.5 million slaves that I have right now. And Moses is like, wow, cool, that would be great. Who exactly should I tell him is sending me to request the freedom of 3.5 million slaves? And God says, tell him the I am, right? The I am that I am has sent you, right? And on that authority. So God is the I am. He is this present moment. He is the isness of this moment. And by inference, you are this moment. This is the only moment that you get to express in, where you get to observe in, where you get to play in, right? This is the moment that is the sum total of all of your desires up until now. You've always gone through one thing at a time. Yeah, I like that. I'll do that. No, I won't do that. I don't like it, right? You've gone through and kind of threaded your needle of likes and dislikes, and this is the moment you've gotten, which is a wonderful exercise for you to look at it. How are you? Are you doing well in the moment that you've created? Are you content in it? Are you fulfilled in it? Do you feel a great hope and full of excitement for the possibilities that come out of this moment? Or have you created some suffering, some insecurity? Are you alone in the world? Do you feel lost? Do you feel empty? Right? Because the collecting of things that we like, that we don't want to flow through this moment of time, those are the things that disallow us from seeing God, from knowing this moment intimately, from being intimate with the moment. It's the reason that we constantly feel the need to be distracted, because we're not quite at peace inside. We don't quite feel as if we belong, as if we're good enough, as if we're pure enough, as if we're self-controlled enough, right? The moment when it's spent on looking outward and seeing things as they appear to be is what will lead us into bondage, what leads us into a trap of such. He says this fire of freedom and purity, this is the nature of every soul. It's not a quality, because qualities can be acquired and therefore can be lost. But the soul is one with freedom, Vivekananda says, and the soul is one with existence, and the soul is one with knowledge. The Sat Chit Ananda, that intelligence, that love, that being, existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute, this is the nature, this is the birthright of the soul. And all the manifestations that we have seen are its expressions, dimly or brightly manifesting itself. Even death is but a manifestation of the real existence. Birth and death, life and decay, degeneration and regeneration are all manifestations of that oneness. So knowledge, however it manifests itself, is either as ignorance or as learning, is but the manifestations of that same chit, the essence of knowledge. The difference is only in degree and not in kind. You see, so this moment is that freedom. Now, how do you experience the freedom of the moment? Well, by looking at the implications of that. This is the finest experience of grace that I found anyway. And if you have more, I'd love to talk about it. But this moment always comes to you fresh, always comes to you new, always comes to you undefined, right? So in every single moment, you get a fresh start. You know, when you sit there and draw close to the beloved, when you walk into that shrine, I know for me, my first decade in the monastery, that was always a practice in itself, to sit in that shrine and be reflective about myself, especially the closer I was to my pre-monastic self. You know, I sat there I would find myself thinking horrible things in the shrine, terribly embarrassing things, and would be completely unaware that I was sitting there, you know, having that run through my mind in front of the Lord. And so I collected those feelings of guilt. I collected those feelings of shame, of not being good enough. And my practice became about a future day where I would enjoy God, where I would realize God, right? But the moment was just work. The moment was just discipline. The moment I was stuck. And I was living for that future. And so to come back to this moment, I did a lecture last month, I think, called the Practices for Now, right? And the idea is that in your practice now, do not practice to attain something. That is wrong practice. That is unhelpful practice. That is binding practice. Don't practice for tomorrow, for some imagined day in the future where everything will be perfect between you and the divine. Why? Because the divine has told you everything is perfect now. That your divine essence is purity, is perfection. Well, how did you get into this mess then, thinking that you were all of these actions, that you were the results of these actions? What is it that has tied these actions into your mind as karma and started to control your actions, started to limit your ability to love, limit your ability to touch the wisdom within you, limited your ability to be content in the moment, to be joyful in the moment? How does that happen? Well, you see, we're told our nature is spirit, right? Our nature is Satchitananda. Our nature is one. So think about that. This room is let's say that right now this is last night's dream. You were dreaming of me speaking to you last night. And so we're all in this room now. We're in your dream, and I'm up here speaking. How many people are in this room under that scenario? None, right? The only person in that scenario is the sleeper, presumably in some comfortable bed somewhere. And in that dream, he's in here somewhere. He might have chosen to be this and speaking, or he might have chosen to be any of you. Or in a dream, he could be that fluffy pillow over there. We don't know, right? But in the dream world, there's one reality, and that one reality surrounds all of us. And all of us are playing the game given to us by the dreamer, by the one that's sleeping, the one who is literally in this moment created us. All right, so there's nobody in this room at this moment. Then what is in this room? Satchitananda is in this room. Brahman is this room. I could say in this room. It wouldn't be true, though. But this notion of Brahman, what is it? So we'll accept this room as the dream, right? What is it in this room that has become something that looks just like a big block of wood up there? What is it that has become a light? Right? What is it that has become the podium and a microphone? What is it that can become and function as anything? It would be mind stuff, right? The stuff of mind that the dreamer somehow is in charge of, though unaware, seemingly asleep. He's created this space out of Brahman. And so we're intimate with the divine, always, and coming to the point of the moment you can experience that. One of my fun little practices that I've made up is in the morning when I first get up, or actually just as I'm in the process of getting up, when I manage to push on that pillow and sit up, right? I'll sit up right on the bed and think about the next few things I've got to do. I've started touching the bed and reminding myself, this is not material, right? This is Brahman. I'm touching Brahman, right? I'm touching him everywhere. There is no limit, everything. Even like that, I'm touching Brahman. And so I take a few minutes just to remember that. I'm not waking up to a material world that's uncaring, that's empty, right? That is the result of karma's works. I'm waking up to the dream of the divine. I'm entering the universal mind, the mind of the beloved, a mind in which he is constantly through this change trying to express himself. Infinite are his expressions. And so when you look at a picture of God, you have to look at an infinite stack that goes much farther than that, right? Because all of this infinite change, this is God manifesting. Well, God can't be trapped in a single frame. God can't be trapped in a single picture. God can be trapped only in an infinite series of photos, an infinite series of frames in this movie of life. And so all of this constant flow of change is the beloved showing himself or herself to you, expressing her nature to you. And that nature is love. That nature is an unconditioned love for you, personally, for you, right? Because if there's no one in this room, you can be the whole if you want. You can be the one real one. in this room and accept that God has made this moment for you, for your training, for your encouragement to lift you up in this moment. So how do we get deluded? Right? Well, we know that we're Satchitananda. Well, mentally anyway, right? In our minds, we've heard this. We are Satchitananda. We're spirit, right? And one of the marks of spirit is it has no boundaries, right? There's no limitation to it. It's not a doer. It's an unchanging absolute. That's the truth of our divine nature. So how do we live in this world? We can't fit in this world, right? The Gita tells us that the soul, the spirit, and this world, that there's an uncrossable gulf between them, that this moment cannot affect me, right? This moment, throw water at me, the body gets wet, the soul is unaffected. Burn me, the body burns, but the soul is unaffected, right? So how did I get into this world? I created a thought of myself, you see? Because I, in my true nature, Satchitananda, the only place I can inhabit is the shrine of the heart, where the absolute unchanging, in a metaphor, bleeds into this world and becomes the expression. Right? And so within you, within the shrine of your heart, is your realization, complete, finished. Nothing needs to be done for it. You just have to stop living here as the thought of yourself in a mind amongst many thoughts of self, right? Because if this room is a dream and is expression of mind stuff and not the reality itself, then we have to experience it as mind stuff and as not reality itself. And so you created a singular thought of yourself up in the mind, and then you decorated that thought of yourself with attributes, because you're now in the world of attributes as a thought of yourself. And those collections of attributes that you've picked to define yourself, to limit yourself, to know yourself, actually you're picking them to find comfort, to find security in a world of constant, unrepeating change, right? To find stability. And what's that collection of thoughts that describes you really? It's Maya, it's ego, it's a false sense of self, because those thoughts no more belong to you than they do to the tree outside the window. Right? You've collected them and identified with them and moved into a body, well, created a body to hold yourself. This is just a thought of a body. And this body you gave instruments of action, right? Even though you can't act, because you are an isness, right? You are an I amness. And so you had to create a false self. You had to create a thought, a self that could dwell among other thoughts. Right? And you're clear of why I'm calling all of this thought, right? Right? My favorite thing to say, I think I've said it in every lecture in the last 3 years, because I can't get it out of my head, that you're not seeing any of this stuff. You cannot see the world as it is, right? That light from that little burning fake candle up there, right? It's hitting my eye, going through the lens and hitting the back of my eye. Right? It never gets into the darkness of brain. The brain's in a black box, and as long as you're healthy, it's going to stay there, right? Untouched by light. And so you're not seeing the light of the sun. And that sun you're looking out there is not responsible for the light of this beautiful day. Why? Because we're dreaming, right? Enter back into the dream. There's no one in this room except the sleeper. Well, where's the light coming from? Not coming from outside the sleeper. He's asleep in the bed. What is it that lights our dreams? It's the light of our awareness, right? That infinite light, that light that Thakur saw just before he realized God, when he stepped into that infinite ocean of light with waves of bliss that were rushing toward him with such a ferocity that it was going to take away his very sense of I, and then ultimately did, right? That's what we're experiencing. That's what we're seeing. This is where we are. The sun, reflected from millions of globules of water, appears to be millions of suns, and in each globule is a miniature picture of the sun form. So all of these souls, all of them, right, are but reflections and are not real. They are not the real I, which is the God of the universe, the one undivided being of the universe. And all these little different beings, men and animals, etc., are but reflections and not real. They are simply illusory reflections upon nature. There is but one infinite being in the universe, and that being appears as you and as I. But this appearance of divisions is, after all, a delusion. He has not been divided, but only appears to be divided. This apparent division is caused by looking at him through the network of time, space, and causation. You see, that time, space, and causation, that's our one persnickety little problem right there. That is the triad that the mind uses to make God experienceable. Right? That one light, that one divine being is you, and it's in you right now, but it's shining as your light of awareness, that light that's lighting this moment, that light that lights your dream at night, that source of light which has no other source. You are the source of that light, right? That infinite divinity. And so it lights up this moment, lights up this room, gives you an experience of this room, but it is not the thing itself. And the stories that you've collected, the narratives that you've collected as part of your thought self, part of your ego self, these things that have stitched this singular moment into a three-divided part of past, present, and future, right? Where the past is all of your attachments. You hold them up. When you look at this moment, you can't see the freshness. You can't see the newness. You can't see the purity of it. Why? Because you dragged your karma in here with you this morning, right? You dragged your narratives in with you this morning in the mind. And those narratives have got you thinking about them, right? Oh, after this, I got to go do that. Oh my God, I forgot to bring that. And, on and on and on it goes. And so we're forward looking out at the senses, looking at this world, experiencing this world, but we're not. We are not the thought of ourself. We are being, not being me, but being, right? And so our process is exactly the same. Suppose that we are dreaming, right? And you want to get out of the dream. What are you going to tell me? How are you going to tell me to get out of this dream that we're all sharing right now? You're going to tell me, well, first of all, nothing is real. This is all illusory. And you're going to look around and you'll be like, illusory? How are you getting illusory out of this, right? But if we're sitting in a dream, it's true, is it not? That all of this would be illusory. If we were somebody's dreaming and we realize now that we're all dreaming, this is our dream in here, it is illusory. So that's the first thing we'd have to understand. And then they're going to tell you you're not real, right? Do you get it? The things that you would tell somebody to come out of a dream of their own power, to return to the sleeper, to return to their true nature, that process is going to be the Vedanta. That process is going to require grace to help you to disconnect from this world that seems so real. For you to keep your eye on the moment pure and fresh and clean and new in this moment. For you to be able to understand grace, the infinity of that grace. For you to be able to trust the purity of this moment by recognizing it as divine and by accepting your invitation to it fully. You come into that grace. And so your practice, your sitting, is a striving to enjoy God. It's not a striving to reach an enlightenment or have some kind of an attainment, because you are not the doer. So you cannot have an attainment. You cannot have a doership. You are an observer of a dream. When you are acting, you're confused. You have identified yourself as the thought of yourself, and that thought of yourself can act on other thoughts. But the other thoughts that it acts on are not real, right? They're not there. So it's not God that's keeping track of your karma. It's not God who's walking around keeping a list of who's naughty and who's nice and making sure that all of you pay up your tab before you leave the tavern of the world at the end. No, you are holding on to your karma. Your own mind is holding on to your karma. Remember when the Divine Mother said, the grace of God is easily attained, but the grace of one's own mind is difficult indeed. Right? letting go of the mind. We're white-knuckled. White-knuckled clinging to the things of mind. We love our stories. We love our narratives that keep us busy, keep us entertained in the moment, right? We love anything that keeps the plates spinning, right? And even as the plates are spinning, I've got that from the Merv Griffin show when I was like 10 years old. They had well, by chance she was Asian. I don't know if that was important, but this woman was on the stage and she had she started with just this big log with all of these dowels sticking up about 3-4 feet. And she had a stack of plates over there. And by the end, she had put a plate on the top of each dowel and started it spinning. So that plate was spinning on that dowel like that. And she got 14 of these things going, and then she was just running back and forth and keeping them all happening. It's a perfect metaphor for life. That's what we're doing. When I was in the monastery for about, 8 years, I guess it was, my father called one day and he asked, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm weeding the garden." He said to me something that was quite hurtful to me at the time, really challenged me, because he said, over the last decade since you've joined this place, because he's never been for my monastical life, he said, for 10 years, every time I call, you've either just finished washing the toilets or cooking a lunch or sweeping the sidewalk. He said, when are you going to do something with your life? When are you going to become something? Are you going to teach a class? Are you going to write a book? What are you going to do? You're just going to be a grunt worker your whole life. Well, I was really, that went straight in. Let me just say that, because it was my father, right? It was my father, and everybody naturally wants their father to be proud of them. So I went to Swami immediately. I thought, well, we've got a big problem here. And I went to Maharaj and I told him, I said, Maharaj, I said, I've been a monk now just about 10 years, and it's been very nice, Maharaj. But I feel like I'm just a glorified domestic engineer, a maintenance engineer, Maharaj. That's all I get to do, is just kind of maintain guest rooms, maintain toilets, maintain kitchens, maintain swamis. I said, when will I be able to be a teacher? When will I be a swami? And he looked at me and he said, nobody's a swami. Nobody's a teacher. He said, everyone in this world, regardless of what they call their job, is only a maintenance engineer. He says there is no other possibility. Everybody's maintaining a house, maintaining a family, maintaining a job, keeping their plates spinning, right? That's all you can do in this world, is spin plates, because it doesn't go anywhere, right? Time, space, and causation only exists in ignorance, right? Because you can't have a cause and effect without a boundary, right? If you take your cause and effect, you study it. This is the cause. Yes, here's the effect. Ah, very good, perfect. Now we stretch this out one more step. Oh my God, that's not a cause, that's an effect. There's the cause. That's the cause, that's the effect. Oh, but that's also a cause. And this is the effect. And then you bring this end out. Ah, but that's also a cause. And so everything in the universe is both a cause and effect, so the word is meaningless, right? Everything is a cause and effect. There is not such thing. If there's nothing happening, if the divine reality of this is one without a second, with no change, an absolute unchanging reality, then nothing can happen, right? And at first you think, but I work so hard. I've saved all my money. How can nothing be happening? Well, you see, remember, we're in a dream. So all of you have built houses and have nice cars, I assume, or maybe an ugly car, maybe a bike, who knows? But you've all got these things that you've collected that you're holding on to. And when you wake up, where's the car, the dream car? Where's the dream house? Right? Just gone. And you're like, but I built it. I worked so hard at that. I broke at least 3 nails putting that floor in. Right? It's not there. You wake up in the morning, it's gone. Remember that story of that farmer who lost his son, and his wife was in terrible distress over it. And she came to him and he was unbothered. He was working. And she's like, you heartless, horrible person. Your son has died. How can you not be sad about that? He said, well, I'm perplexed. Because last night I dreamed I was a king and I had 7 sons. And those 7 sons were well educated. They were noble. They were warriors. They were strong. They were upright. Great people. And when I woke this morning, they were all gone. And so now I'm faced with the dilemma. Do I weep for my one son in the waking dream? Or do I weep for my 7 sons in my sleeping dream last night? Because they were both real to me. I experienced both of them. Right? And so this is the dilemma. Is this world real? It's not. But we weep. And why are we weeping? Because we're projecting ourselves onto it, right? Because a movie's not real either, right? You walk into that movie, the only thing real in the movie is going to be the white screen behind the movie and the source of light in the projector. That's the only thing real about a movie. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of swirling colors on a screen with a soundtrack. But you go to that movie, you look at that swirling color on the screen, and you form people. Oh, yeah, there's a woman, look. Oh, that's her husband, I think. Oh no, they just broke up, right? And you watch that movie, you, from your own experience, are delineating the people, the cars, the houses, because they're just dots of color. There's nothing there being shown to you. Your mind is discerning and disseminating all these pieces. And then you see the man and the woman, you see them break up, you see them weeping and suffering, and suddenly you realize you're sitting there sniffling, and suffering yourself in the seat, in the room. Why? What happened? Why is everybody crying in here? We've just been watching swirling colors on a screen, right? There's nothing real there. And yet we get attached. We get drawn into the narrative. Our ego is built with narratives, so narratives are delightful to us. We love a good story, right? Because egos are ignorant, and stories are the product of ignorance. You can't have a story if everybody knows every possibility, right? The dreamer, right? When God dreams, okay, this is a proposition. When God dreams, there's one difference in his dream. In God's dream, he slips into that dream and he becomes everything in the dream. Everything. This brick, this half of this quarter of this brick, this piece of brick dust. Every single one of them has a full consciousness of God in it, in his dream. Full awareness. Right? So for God, there is no story, because there's no perspective that God can't have immediately, because his center is in every possible point in this room. And so for God, there is no story. And for God, in reality, there is no will. Why? Because if you're all powerful and all knowing and you have a will, a desire, guess what happens? Your desire. Immediately, it happens. Right? And so we know that, and we can put that into life, and we can realize, wow, I'm here this morning. That means that Mother's called my name, right? That means my journey has begun. The purpose of my life is beginning to unfold. My realization, as Ramakrishna says, that the cobra has bitten me. And so it's only a matter of time. And so when you sit and do your practice today, borrow on that. It's guaranteed that you're going to realize God. It's guaranteed that you're going home. It's guaranteed that it's all going to work out all right in the end. And so when you go and sit and meditate, don't drag your past in with you. Don't drag your personality in with you. Just come in and enjoy God. Enjoy the moment as it is. Sit there and contemplate existence. Open yourself up and realize the immensity of existence. How intricate that is, and how that existence is something that just keeps getting bigger and bigger, like all of the names of God, right? That existence keeps getting bigger and has more and more qualities to it that inspire you. The fact that you can see beauty, you can experience love, you can experience mistakes and grow from them. You can see where you're at and posit a transcendence beyond those things. This is your nature, and this is your relationship with the moment, and it's infinite and it's beautiful. It only takes you to experience it for a moment. Don't sit down and experience your thoughts. Don't sit down and experience the world of thinking where all of your narratives and egoism are maintained. Sit down and come into the shrine. Drop that little sliver of awareness that follows you from sleeping dream to waking dream. That little element. If you sit and have a meditation on that fact, when you sit and think, okay, this I is awake right now. It's dressed in orange curtains and standing in front of a bunch of people. But tonight, right, that little I, that sliver of reality, whatever that is, the real unchanging me, is going to magically drop down into a brand new body, in a brand new world, with a whole new set of narratives. Do you know what that teaches you about yourself? You are perfect renouncers. You renounce every day better than I've ever renounced. Because in that dream, when you enter in, you have forgotten your husband. You have forgotten your children. You've forgotten your job. You've forgotten who's president. You have forgotten all of this. And you've cleanly and freshly accepted a brand new everything as if it was normal. Oh yeah, my life has been completely replaced and I've got a caterpillar body, no trouble at all, right? And that's how it is in a dream. And the dream seems like it makes sense, doesn't it? You have a good dream and in the morning you're like, oh my God, I had this amazing dream. You're sitting there with your roommate at the table. And then you start trying to tell the dream. And you suddenly realize that dream was not linear at all. That story that dream told was barely there at all. Because as you're telling it, you realize, gosh, there's really no narrative here. I was in this room, and then I was in that room, and then this, and then that. And somehow that was a narrative. But in the dream, it seemed fine. Sri Nisargadatta says that this moment's exactly the same. You know, so many times we talk about, oh, what is the difference between the dreaming state and the waking state? And everybody say, well, continuity. Right? You wake up to the same reality every day, which you don't. You wake up to a whole new set of headlines, a whole new set of changes, right? Nothing is the same from one moment to the next, and that's what Sri Nisargadatta says. He says that every moment the world is created new, right? Every moment the world is created new. And that if you tried to take this slice, we'll call it that this moment, grab it. Okay, a second one, grab it. You put those two slices, those infinitely thin slices together, and you try and line them up. Not one atom in the universe is in the same place. There is no way to line those two pieces up, right? You have a section of your brain that's responsible for continuity. It's left hemisphere. A section of your brain that is constantly stitching your moments together to keep your narrative alive and to keep your ego safe, right? Your ego will adjust in the moment. It'll collect attributes in the moment to make itself safe, right? As long as we're white-knuckling on this experience of being, we can't get past it, right? He says, Sri Nisargadatta says, the person is merely the result of a misunderstanding. So he says, frankly, there's no such thing as a person. Your person is created by your mind to explain yourself and to give you a sense of safety and a sense of actualization in a world in which you are not the doer. You know nothing about it, right? And yet you have to exist in it. Right? Think about it. Right now, we're in a vehicle. We've forgotten that probably. Right? We're on a big round vehicle. And it's spinning at a pretty fast pace. And it's hurtling through space at an even faster pace. And there are all kinds of things out there that are dangerous. There are trillions of suns for us to hit. There are trillions of comets and rocks that are big enough to give us a headache for quite some time. And yet we're all sitting here quite comfortable, right? We're worried about the important stuff, I'm out of milk, right? They're not selling my ice cream at that store anymore, right? And so those are egoism problems. Egoism problems are small problems to keep you distracted, to keep you busy, keeping you not thinking about the fact that you're hurtling through space with no driver at ungodly speeds. We don't even know where we are. We never know where we are. right? And so egoism keeps it small. Oh, I'm in Trabuco. Well, where's Trabuco? Trabuco's looping around like a madwoman on this planet right now, hurtling through space, so you will never know where you are unless you know someone relatively, right? Someone who's also thinking relatively, someone in LA. But if you're thinking of someone off on, I don't know, some Star Trek planet somewhere way out there, and they ask, where are you? Every time you begin to tell them, you're wrong. Because the split second that has passed, that Earth and that solar system and that galaxy have moved significantly, probably distances that you can't even conceive of in just that moment, just that second. And so you will never know where you are. So how do you get lost? Right? You've never known where you were. And so what is all of this saying? Don't worry. I've got you. You're safe not because of the choices you've made. You're safe because nothing can touch you. Your divine self has been watching this for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So not only are you a perfect renouncer in your ability to lay down everything every night when you go to sleep, but you're also a great meditator. Because the reality is you have been the observer within yourself for thousands and thousands of years and incarnations. And look how patient you are. Look how calm you are. You're an excellent meditator because all you've ever done is observe God. Observe God as the witness. Right? To watch, you get to watch all of the things that infinite power, infinite love, and infinite knowledge can manifest. A non-repeating flow of change. So boredom's for the stupid. You have an infinity of things to pick up and to learn about your nature, learn about love, learn about intelligence, learn about being. At any moment, an infinite library in front of you, a library of experience, right? This whole world is pointing at God. Look through it. That's the magic. That's how we live in this world, right? We look through it. We think, God, it's beautiful out there. Why? Because God is beautiful. I have a beautiful peace inside. Why? Because God is peaceful. I'm here this morning. Why? Because God is gracious. Right? And in every moment you can know that in a very real way, not in one of these faith ways where you have to believe something with no evidence. There's plenty of evidence. That's all there is evidence of God's love. Why? Because God is Satchitananda, right? He is existence. So if God was not intimately with you right now, you wouldn't be here. You are borrowing his existence to be here. You wouldn't be able to learn anything from these words because you would have no intelligence. You are borrowing God's intelligence at this moment. If he was not with you or she was not with you, you would not be able to comprehend what we're saying. You wouldn't be able to see your faults and have a hope of transcendence, of moving beyond them, right? God is love. Your ability to feel love, your ability to express love, is because God is intimate with you in this moment. If he was not with you, you would not know love. And that's the definition of hell. Right? A definition that we also experience. Because even though God doesn't go anywhere, we do. We always forget, right? Maya, the ego, has two powers. What are the two powers of egoism, the two powers of Maya? Forgetfulness. So you forget your nature. You forget who you are, really. And then projection, the narratives. They're projected over your forgetfulness. And now you think that you're a small, lonely body in a world you can't touch, in a world you can't change, in a world where you're always the victim, right? If you're living in that ego space. But in reality, you're the universe, ever new, ever free, ever beloved. Why? Because freedom is not the ability to do what you want. Freedom is to have no want. so that every moment is content, every moment is perfect, every moment is blissful. And if you want to know the potential of how blissful it can be, of how perfect it can be, then look at the number of times Ramakrishna would go into samadhi during the day. Samadhi is simply seeing the moment as it is. That's all it is. Samadhi is simply seeing this moment as it is, without your samskaras projecting, without your narratives explaining, without your future desires causing your anxiety to work more, to find more, and to keep yourself distracted in them. Right? If you can lay all of that down, and you can, you're a marvelous meditator and a perfect renouncer. If you can lay that down and get just even a split second of the 220-volt power that's running through the moment, it will shock you. It will blow your head off, actually. You know, and sometimes in meditation that will happen at some point. You'll be groping around in that world being like, why am I sitting here? What was that? Right? Suddenly you'll become aware for a split second, because for a split second the mind silenced, was undistracted, was purely present. And for that split of a second, God was touched for a moment. And you get a zing of bliss, right? You get a zing of light within you. And you lose it immediately. Why? Because the first thing you do is objectify it and look for its story. Right? The first thing you'll do, what was that? Right? Not, what was me? Because there was no that at that point. You were silent and quiet, and you touched the divine image within you, right? And you got a zing of love, full on, unprotected. You're like, oh my God, what was that? And then you spend the next 10 years looking for it because you didn't understand how it happened. You didn't understand when we read that paragraph earlier that said that these are not attributes of the soul. Your bliss is not an attribute. It doesn't come and go. Your love is not an attribute. It doesn't come and go. Your intelligence is not an attribute. It doesn't come and go. It is the presence of God within you. It is what you are, and it's always there. And so your practice is to sit and accept that. Accept realization. Mother's giving it to you. It's prepared for you already. All you have to do is move your awareness out of the changing and into the silence of the shrine that you've carried in your heart for your whole life. But usually spending almost no time here, because this is freedom. And to live in the atmosphere of this temple, right? We know from the Rig Veda that the body is the temple of the divine. You are the divinity that inhabits that temple, right? And you are the individual who worships the entity in that temple, the ego self and the true self, face to face in the shrine of the heart. And if you can open your heart to accept an infinite grace, to accept an infinite love, then you will have accomplished one thing: infinite humility. Because in order to accept this infinite gift of grace, this infinite gift of freedom, you have to be infinitely humble, because you have to know that in this scenario, there's nothing that you can do. It is God and God alone. And that as you come to know that, as you grow in that, as you struggle each time, as you sit there until you work out your forgiveness and your freedom again, after thousands of falls, that your ego long ago stopped believing that you could do this, right? God still believes. Because love always hopes, always trusts, always believes. Love never fails. 1 Corinthians 13, one of my favorite verses, right? That is the nature of God. And so in this moment, you sit down and accept the fact that God has not failed in you. Sit down and open up to the idea that when God looks at you, he doesn't see a single fault, because he does not have a single fault, right? And Mother teaches us that the only faults that you can see are the ones that you have. A baby knows no thief, right? You can go into the baby's nursery anytime you want, steal all of their diapers. They're never going to report you. It's the easiest theft around. Why? Because the baby's not going to see a thief. The baby's not going to have a me and mine around his diapers, right? We do, but it's not natural. It's part of that ego self. It's part of the way the ego self keeps you engrossed in itself by promising to deliver you, promising to finally meditate for more than 2 minutes, promise you that finally it's going to get up on time. But the ego can't do anything. It's God and God alone. So at every moment of your life, keep that in your mind and enjoy it. Right? Vivekananda says, God is not here to ruin your enjoyment of life. He says religion is here to teach you how to enjoy life so that you don't get caught in it. So that you can love like a Jesus, like a Buddha, like a Rama, like a Krishna, like a Holy Mother. Right? That you can love like that. That's your potential. But you have to get that ego out of the way, that limiter, that ego that's always measuring every little bit of joy that you get. Right? Because the joy of your realization and the joy of a desire fulfilled are the same. They are both the enjoyment of God. Because there is nothing but God. And all the things that you think you're enjoying, what you're enjoying is the name of God that they're reflecting back to you. And if you can get past that confusion that the object is the thing you desire and understand it's the name of God that it's reflecting, then you know where to look for it. You know where to go for it. And if you live that way, you live that way looking through the world at the beauty of that which is behind it, that which is manifesting it. When you wake up from the dream, you wake up to light, right? As a final clarifying point, he says there are levels in consciousness, but not in awareness. It is of one block, homogeneous. Its reflection in the mind is love and understanding. There are levels of clarity in understanding and intensity in love, but not in their source. The source is simple and single, but its gifts are infinite. Only do not take the gifts for the source. Realize yourself as the source and not as the river. That is all. So this understanding of awareness, it's important. The ultimate truth is awareness with no objects in it. We call that just plain awareness. Now you can transcend even that. Well, you do transcend that when the final object disappears, right? Because awareness with nothing in it is just is. Right? Awareness with an object in it is consciousness. Right? And so as soon as we put an object in the mind, which the easier way of saying that is as soon as you put the idea of me and mine into your ever pure and ever calm mind, it's like adding vinegar to baking soda. Have you ever done that? It almost explodes in a mountain of fizz. Right? That's what happens to the pure mind. That pure mind is your nature. It's what you were before you created a thought of yourself and dropped it in there. What was the thought of yourself? That was the thought of me and mine. And you dropped that into a pure mind, and what happened? Universe after universe after universe exploded into being one moment after another. A huge force of energy and disturbance. Why? Because that was the most unnatural thought you've ever had. Me and mine. When you are infinite, ever free and ever pure, and ever loved by God. Coming into knowing that love is what brings you back to oneness. Surrendering to grace, not to an ogre God, but surrendering to grace is what gives you that confidence of oneness, is what gives you the purity of freedom. It's what releases your conscience from having to contemplate your error. It's what pays the price for your karma, so that you can leave it laying, rusting, and cobweb-ridden in your mind. It's what gives you permission to be, to experience life without fear, not being controlled by your fear in a large room, but being willing to be the first one on the dance floor. You know, being the one who's the first to offer the hug, the one who's the first to offer congratulations, the one who's just not afraid to be themselves as they discover the infinity of that. We say that it is freedom that we are to seek, and that freedom is God. It is the same happiness as in everything else, but when man seeks it in something which is finite, he gets only a spark of it. The thief, when he steals, gets the same happiness as the man who finds it in God, but the thief gets only a little tiny spark with a mass of misery. The real happiness is God. Love is God. Freedom is God. And you are that. Enjoy your freedom. Use your practice to accept it, to open up to it, to see if you can possibly swallow a love with no conditions. See if you can possibly swallow a grace that's infinite. See if you can even wrap a mind around an infinite intelligence. And contemplate each one of those things and understand that every one of them is a love letter that you've long ago forgotten. Why? Because it's not changing. It doesn't fluctuate. God is ever present. And what does the mind always do with white noise? Ignores it, filters it out. You smell that beautiful rose. Smell it the second time, a little bit less. Third time, a little bit less. By the fifth time, no smell of the rose. You see why we're not in bliss right now, why we're not in ecstasy right now? Because we've kept our minds on the changing, and the mind has filtered out that unchanging reality of your joy, that unchanging reality of your contentment, that unchanging reality of your wisdom, and most of all, that unchanging component of bliss, of love. They're all there within you in full measure right now, enough to put you into a samadhi that will pop your head off of your shoulders. You only need to see it, which is why Vivekananda tells us, stop seeking God and start seeing her. God is here present as much as the day of your realization. Why experience it different now from then? Open and accept that you are free and ever pure and ever loved by God.